Welcome to the Rehabilitation Loan Program training. This training is intended to guide you, the lender, through the requirements of this loan program. We like to keep Minnesota Housing's mission in mind as we proceed with our day-to-day work, which is housing is the foundation for success. So we collaborate with individuals, communities, and partners to create, preserve, and finance affordable housing. You can access the Rehabilitation Loan Program manuals and forms by logging onto our website at mnhousing.gov. Select the link for Home Improvement Partners, then the link RLP-ELP at the top of the screen. All of the documents referenced in this training will be found under RLP Manuals, Forms, and Resources. The purpose of the Rehabilitation Loan Program is to provide financing to low-income homeowners that need to rehabilitate their existing home for the purposes of improving its safety, livability, or energy efficiency. This funding source fills the gap between those homeowners who can secure home improvement loans through the private sector and those who cannot. Financing is provided in the form of a 0% interest loan, which is forgiven after 15 years on homes taxed as real property and after 10 years for mobile homes in mobile home parks. If the homeowner ceases to occupy the property during the term of the loan, then the loan is due and payable in full. The maximum loan amount is $27,000 with a minimum of $1,000. The funds of the loan can only be used to address eligible deficiencies that have been identified through an inspection on the property. Certain soft costs can be included in the loan, such as recording fees, mortgage registration tax, and title search costs. A borrower must be 18 years of age or older to be eligible for a rehabilitation loan. Co-signers are not allowed, and all borrowers must own and occupy the property as their primary residence. Borrowers must individually or in the aggregate possess at least 1/3 ownership interest in the residence. All borrowers and accommodation parties, individually or in the aggregate, must have 100% ownership interest in the residence to be improved. If the property is a mobile home, the borrower must have 100% ownership interest in the property. The borrower must have clear title to the subject property. The lender is required to verify a legal description of the subject property, the borrower's ownership interest, and any existing liens on the subject property. Title may be held individually as joint tenancy, tenancy in common, tenancy by the entirety, as a contract for deed, or in a life estate, excluding the remainderment. There are several eligible and ineligible forms of ownership for this program. Eligible types of ownership include fee simple, leasehold estate, mobile home or manufactured home taxed as real property, mobile home or manufactured home taxed as personal property and located in a mobile home park, and a leasehold estate subject to a community land trust. Ineligible types of ownership include shareds in a cooperative, trusts, reverse mortgages. The borrower or borrowers must have owned and occupied the subject property as a principal residence for at least 6 months prior to the start of the rehabilitation project. The borrower must also continue to own and regularly reside in the property during the term of the loan. Borrowers must have gross annual projected incomes at or below 30% of the area median income for the Twin Cities metropolitan area. Please log on to our website for the most accurate and up-to-date income limits. If a borrower's gross annual income is zero or a negative amount, the borrower is ineligible for a loan. The borrower's total combined assets cannot exceed $27,000 to be eligible for the program. When calculating assets, consider any outstanding indebtedness. A borrower who has previously received financing through the Rehabilitation Loan Program is ineligible to receive further financing through this program for 5 years from the date of the previous loan closing. The borrower must be current on all mortgage payments and real estate taxes. Credit reports are not required and should not be obtained. And the borrower must be unable to obtain equivalent financing elsewhere. All properties must be covered by hazard insurance, which meets at a minimum the following requirements: The insurance must be in effect on the date of the mortgage. It must be provided in amount sufficient to cover all lien amounts or 100% of the insurable value. It must protect against loss, damage from fire, and other hazards covered by the standard extended coverage endorsement. And it should allow for claims to be settled on a replacement cost basis. Minnesota Housing also requires the borrower to apply for weatherization. The work completed through the weatherization program assists in meeting green standard requirements as outlined in the Minnesota Housing Weatherization Field Guide. When the lender establishes that a spouse permanently resides outside of the household, that separated spouse may be excluded from signing the rehabilitation loan application and note, but must sign the mortgage. There are several types of properties that are eligible under the rehabilitation program, including single-family detached homes, duplexes, planned unit developments, condominiums, townhomes, mobile or manufactured homes. The properties must be located in the state of Minnesota. The types of property that are ineligible under the rehabilitation loan program include properties containing 3 or more units, a unit in a cooperative corporation or limited equity cooperative corporation, recreational or seasonal homes, investment properties, properties designed for commercial use, and properties used for businesses. Each improvement that's made to the home through the rehabilitation loan program must be a permanent general improvement made in compliance with all applicable state, county, and health codes or other public standards. Improvements must affect the safety, livability, or energy efficiency of the home and cannot include luxury items such as garages, freestanding appliances, or improvements already in process. For a complete description of eligible improvements, please refer to the program manual. If you have additional questions regarding improvements, a program manager will review them on a case-by-case basis. At least 3 bids from Minnesota Housing licensed building contractors must be solicited based on the written scope of work. Lenders may assist borrowers in selecting the building contractors to complete the rehabilitation. In general, the lowest reasonable bid should be selected. If the lowest reasonable bid is not selected, the lender and borrower must provide written justification. The contractor must sign and date all bids. Homeowner labor is permitted provided the lender is satisfied that the borrower is capable and willing to perform the work. If the borrower is completing the work, a work program agreement must be executed. Additionally, a materials list must include the actual cost of the materials required to complete the necessary improvements. The lender must perform at least one interim inspection in addition to the initial and final inspections otherwise required. The borrower may not pay for or be reimbursed for the cost of labor performed by the borrower or other household residents. Disbursement of funds by the borrower and to the borrower is not permitted. No funds may be dispersed to or by the homeowner. Minnesota Housing reserves the right to inspect properties during any stage of the rehabilitation process with reasonable notice. After completion of the project, properties must meet Minnesota Housing Rehab Standards, Green Communities criteria, and Minnesota Housing Overlay. The property must also comply with the state building code and all other public standards, meet lead-based paint requirements, contain lead levels at or below the required levels, and manufactured homes must comply with Minnesota State Building Code 1350.3800 and Dolly Memorandum. Minnesota Housing will provide funds to defray a portion of the expense incurred by providing lender services, including but not limited to staff salaries, office expenses, travel expenses, counseling, and technical assistance. Lenders will be compensated at a rate of 14% of the loan amount or $3,000 per loan, whichever is less. A borrower selection process refers to the specific waitlist process that is instituted by each lender. Be sure to have a standardized, consistent process for placing applicants on a waitlist and for addressing emergency situations. For example, many organizations simply use the first-come, first-served process for managing a waitlist. Others have a first-come, first-served, but elevate emergency situations to the top of the list. Please review the process training guide for further information. Thank you for attending the Rehabilitation Loan Program training. Please contact Minnesota Housing staff if you have further questions or concerns.